welcome in, folks, for this week's episode of What's Bruin. Dom, I am excited to be here. As always, brought to you by our friends over at Ice Shaker. Check them out at iceshaker.com. I still got the Bruins one here. Dom, how are you tonight on this Super Bowl Sunday? I think your audio is a little low.
I'm doing well. Not a football fan at all. So if you're not a football fan, this is the place to be because we have a very special guest with us tonight.
Absolutely, and I'm thrilled to bring her on. I'm not going to wait. I want everyone to join us in welcoming back to the show the one and only Gayle Troiani. Gayle, thank you so much for stepping away from the Super Bowl for a little bit and joining us to talk some bees who've been a little bit more disappointing than not lately.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for having me, guys. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Now, my question for you guys. Where do you guys want to start with this team? So much to talk about, but where do you guys want to start?
I'm going to start with asking Gayle this question. We'll get into what you think the Bruins should do moving forward. But your overall assessment from Charlie Jacobs down to the coaching staff on this season so far?
I kind of understand why Charlie has blind faith in Cam and Don, because if you look at what the Bruins have done since Don has taken over, yes, everyone wants to point out the 2015 draft. All right, we get that. It was not a good draft. It wasn't as bad as everyone thinks it is, though. Yes, a lot of moving parts and everything. But if you look at the way the team was built from then until now, this is really the first year since they missed the playoffs under Claude Julien that you're like, what is going on with this team? They have the talent. They're just not performing. So I'm not on the fire Don Sweeney bandwagon just yet. I'm close to it, but I'm not there yet because I don't think that every decision he's made has been a bad decision. I think that because of the cap hell that they were already in, put him behind the 8 ball. And I'm not one of the people that doesn't think that Zadorov and Lindholm I think they'll find their footing. It may not, but like you have to look at some of the past. Foligno didn't have a great first season with the Bruins. Mm-hmm. And then the next year, everyone was like, oh my God, Uncle Nick, he's the best player since sliced bread. I mean, he was no Bergeron, but you know what I mean. And so I think that that's the problem, is that Bruins fans are spoiled.
Yeah,
because they are so successful that when things don't go their way, that it's hard to put it into perspective, the business part of it. I'm not sold on Sacco as a coach. I think they need to find a different coach, in my honest opinion.
Okay, I got a 2-part, Chris, before you jump in.
Nope, go ahead.
Would Charlie Jacobs replace Don Sweeney without the support of Cam Neely?
No.
You don't think he would?
I think that Cam has more pull on the team than a lot of other presidents do across the league.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad you said that.
If Cam, and this is just my perspective, this isn't anything that I know or anything, it's my perspective, but I think if Cam went to Charlie and said, we need to move on, then Charlie would back him 100%. But if Cam continues to support Don, then Don's not going anywhere. That's my honest opinion.
Okay. Chris?
No, I'm in agreement with everything that she has said so far. I'm with you on not jumping on the Fire Sweeney train just yet. I do find it entertaining, some of the folks that are, and to what degree. Like you said, everyone wants to talk about 2015, but that was 10 years ago. And
Right.
when you really look at the large picture, and Dom, you and I have talked about this, their average starting first overall pick in any given draft is midway through or early at best second round at best. If you look at an average over the last 10 years, you're not going to get Leon Dreisaitl's, Nathan McKinnon's, Cale Makar's, Austin Matthews, William Nylander's. You're not getting those kind of players at the beginning of the second round. They don't go that high or that low. So he has picked players that have to be developed over time. And not every pick has been perfect, but take someone like Urho Vakanainen. He used him as a prospect to, while he still had value, include him in a deal that got you Hampus Lindholm. Now, regardless of how you feel about Hampus Lindholm, I know some people don't like him, whatever. He is still a top four defenseman on this team and on any team in this league. Whether you like him or not, that's what he is.
Here's the issue I have when people start discussing Don Sweeney's draft history, especially 2015. Okay, Don Sweeney came in with a month to prepare for the draft. Don Sweeney does not make the decisions. He has a scouting department that makes the decisions for him or makes the recommendations. And in 2015, it was still Peter Chiarelli's draft team or scouting team, whose brother, Mike Chiarelli, who I have spoken about many of times, in 10 years, I've seen in an OHL arena once. Bob Weddick, who is their current OHL scout, I see once a week.
Right.
Yeah,
okay.
There's a huge difference.
So,
I don't think Sweeney gets enough credit, in my opinion. I think that he now.
Well,
I also was one of the ones that was happy when they fired Bruce Cassidy. You know what I mean? I think there's a lot more behind that than, whatever is out in the public. Jim Montgomery was given a gift of that team in 2023, 2024. Right? No, 22, 23.
Both,
the historic team. I mean, he was given a gift. Any coach could have coached that team. You know what I mean?
Now,
when you see what this team is now versus the coaches that they've had, that's when you find out if it's a good coach or a bad coach.
Yeah, and it's funny that you mentioned the firing of Bruce Cassidy, because now we're seeing in a player poll, anonymous player poll, that apparently he is the number 2 coach that players don't want to play for.
Yep.
So, and it's only behind John Tortorella. So, like, if he's that disliked, how can we know really what went on in that room? Was it really just everyone wants to blame Jake DeBrusk, and now he's not here, so they chose him and it was wrong? How do we know that that's all it was? Like, there's a truth somewhere in there, but we all know how that game works. And it's funny that you talked about Don Sweeney not getting enough credit, because David points out and asks thoughts upon about Don Sweeney being chosen to GM Canada for the Four Nations and for the Olympics. Now, before I get to the second part here, my point is he's not picked for that position if owners and general managers around the league don't respect him as a general manager. So that right there needs to be, I don't want to say a red flag, but a massive green flag as to what others in the league think about what Don Sweeney has done up to this point. That doesn't mean he can't screw it up, but that tells you what everyone around the league has to say, for the most part, about the job he's done.
Yeah, and I didn't mean to cut off Dom either about the scouting portion of it, because he's absolutely 100% correct. So Dom, I apologize that I got you off your thought. But yes, when we talked to Charlie Jacobs at the Black and Gold Gala beforehand, and that was one of the things that he talked about with why he has faith in Sweeney, which I haven't written the article yet because I was waiting for Four Nations. But he said that he has the utmost respect from his peers, that they have him at the top of the echelon, basically, because of what he's done in Boston, his knowledge, the staff he has under him, like everything. So that's a perfect point right there. Is that's the reason why he was chosen, because they think he is one of the best, if not the best GM, among his peers.
Now, I want to circle back to the second part of David's question, but Dom, you pulled up Gordos's question here. I know we've had probably about twice as many people join since we jumped on, and probably since the last time you were on, Gayle. So if you want to just let folks know who you work for, other than being awesome and knowing so much about this team, who you work for, what you do, and kind of what your qualifications are as being asked here.
I'm not sure I have any qualifications.
That's okay. We don't either.
No, but I'm Gayle Troiani, and I am a sports writer for Boston, for the different teams in Boston. Mainly, I focus on the Bruins for NESN, who is the home of the Boston Bruins and Boston Red Sox. And I don't look my age. I'm a lot older than I look, so we'll just leave it at that. But I have definitely lived through heartaches with this team, and been at the highest level and the lowest level. And I guess my qualifications is just been since I could crawl, learning about the Bruins and knowing everything I possibly can, and now being around the team as much as possible.
Perfect. Like I said, we don't have qualifications either, so
I have an opinion just like everyone else, but I need to make sure that everyone understands that when I'm on these podcasts, I do not represent NESN, because this is me as Gayle Troiani, not me as the employee of NESN, because I can't, there's certain things that I need to just put that out there.
Yeah, and if there's ever anything that comes up that you can't disclose or discuss, then we respect that as well. So, but I did want to circle back. Dom, anything to add to any of that?
No, it's just I love Gayle. I love reading her stuff, and sometimes she has some real interesting tweets out there too. So yeah, definitely must follow.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
I have a hair in my mouth. I'm sorry. I keep doing that. There it is. I'm like, I knew I had something in my mouth. It was driving me insane. I have some more prospect stuff coming up too, Dom.
Awesome. Good. Looking forward to it.
So I know I've done what I did, Frederick Renee, and I have Jackson Edward coming up. I have I tried to stay away from the big names that everyone knows about, Lysell and Mikhailov. I have Jackson Edward, Riley Duran, and who else do I have coming up? That I talked to them. I talked to Coach Mujanel. I talked to Adam McQuaid, just to get a whole different perspective on some of the different prospects. I did 2 defensemen, 2 forwards. So
looking forward to those. The Purdue one was solid.
Good.
Great work.
Thanks.
It was an awesome read. I linked to it on my write up last Monday, so hopefully that sent a few people over your way to read it, because I thought it was beautifully written.
Well, thank you.
I did want to circle back though to David's other part here, where he talks about Sweeney gathering info on players who may become available. Dom, we've had this conversation when he was selecting the original roster for Team Canada. Gayle, what are your thoughts on the information that you feel like Sweeney has on what's going on around the league, because he is that Team Canada general manager?
I think that he has a pulse on more players than people give him credit for. But I think a lot of it has to do with, like what Dom said, it's not him. He's not, yes, he's out there, but he has a staff of people that are constantly traveling and going to different arenas, and he's constantly talking to other GMs. Like when you're at the Garden, you constantly see him in conversations with members of different coaching staffs, different scouts, other GMs are there. You see even him talking to different broadcasters and stuff. So I think that he has a pulse on a lot. And like I said earlier, he's so respected around the league. I know that people in Boston right now are very down on Don Sweeney, but as the league views him, that's why he was able to pull off a lot of the trades that he's pulled off, that people are like, how did he pull that off? You know what I mean? Because people trust him, people respect him. So
yeah, his name holds
I
some
don't
weight.
think that people are going to be like, oh yeah, let's give the Bruins everything that we have to make them successful again. But I also don't think that people are like, no, we're not taking phone calls from the Bruins.
I think if Don Sweeney were fired today, he'd find a job quicker than Jim Montgomery.
Oh yeah. Oh, for sure. 100% for sure. If Kyle Dubas could go from Toronto to Pittsburgh, then Don Sweeney's definitely finding a job elsewhere.
Yeah.
I'd bet Don Sweeney's contract would be bigger. So
100%. 100%. He would have a lot more say in a franchise than Kyle Dubas does.
Yeah. And someone else who's coming into the organization, Dom, we didn't really talk about this much last week, but Zdeno Chara brought back into the organization. I don't even know if we know officially what his title is yet. What are you waving?
Because it's not. It's like, that was, if you read what was put out there.
I know it was very carefully written.
But it was from non-employees of the team were saying that. If you read the story in the Globe, the quotes were from non-employees of the team.
I did not read the Globe story.
And if you read Don Sweeney's quote, he said that he is exploring ways for Chara to join the organization. He's not, I wouldn't say that he's back.
Okay.
Go
ahead.
I would suggest that you go back and reread it. Just because
I'll have to read it. Yeah, the Globe one too. My understanding was he was back in the fold with the organization. They just weren't quite sure where or how he was going to fit in and kind of get his feet wet in a couple different aspects of the organization and then make a determination, this is where I want to go. That's how I interpreted it.
Well, but being in the fold could be that he just showed up for practice a couple of times.
Fair enough.
You know what I mean? So that's why I'm saying, I wouldn't put out there that Chara's back, because until the Bruins actually make an announcement that he's back. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Because the Bruins are very close to the vest when it comes to organizational structure.
Absolutely.
If that makes sense.
Oh, 100%.
So for Sweeney to say, we'd love for Chara to be in the fold, we'd love to, we're exploring. It doesn't mean that they're actually in talks with Chara to come back. It just means, you know what I mean? So I would just go back and reread Don Sweeney's comments.
Yeah, I'll have to go back and reread those.
Especially since he wasn't able to be reached for comment. So I would,
No, absolutely. And I appreciate you correcting us on that, because one of Dom's biggest things is that we are going to be accurate no matter what. So
yeah. I didn't write the story for NESN. Someone else did. And then it's not on our website.
Okay. Good enough.
Good enough. Yep.
So, Gayle, two of the biggest issues with this team this season have been the power play and the PK. And if they were relatively good, we wouldn't be fighting for a playoff spot right now. Now you can throw in the road record. And I forget what it was. 9 of 14 games in March are on the road or something ridiculous like that. Your thoughts on obviously the PP and the PK and what you think the issue is with this team on the road.
So I actually talked to Andrew Raycroft about the road portion of it.
Mm-hmm.
And he said it perfectly. It's an abnormally for teams to be really good on the road. Like when the Bruins did that in the historic season, that was not normal.
Right.
Teams are usually 500 or below on the road. When teams are above 500 on the road, it's because they are an elite team. The Bruins are not an elite team this year. So I don't know. And the problem that the Bruins have is keeping a lead in the third period.
Yeah, that's an issue at home too.
That's an issue that they back off instead of attacking, which they've always been the team that attacks. And now they're backing off. They're not playing their game once they have a lead, which is not normal. The PK.
Okay, but until yesterday, they were 16-0-4 going into the third period with a lead.
Right. That's true. They were not until yesterday. It was Washington, the Rangers.
Oh, the Rangers game. Right.
Because now they're 16-2-4.
Right, but how many leads did they blow in the second period where they went into the third losing, even though they had already been winning in the first?
Right. I mean, that's something I would have to look at those numbers. But as far as the power play and the PK, I think part of the problem is, and I thought that when Sacco took over, he said that he was going to look at it. I'm not sure why they have a defensive-minded special teams coach running the power play. Not really sure why Chris Kelly is running the power play.
Well, you know what their explanation for that, Gayle, has always been that because Chris Kelly was such an effective penalty killer, he should know how to break down the other team's PK. That was their reasoning.
Okay, so I understand that, and that's 100% probably true because he was so effective on the PK. But that doesn't mean he knows who should be on the power play.
Right.
Right. So, and I think part of their power play problem, and I know it wasn't perfect before Hampus Lindholm got hurt, but you're missing a huge part of your offense on the power play without Hampus Lindholm.
Yeah, but he wasn't even on the power play enough beforehand. It was when he got on the power play that he went down with the knee injury.
But the power play was doing better when he was on the power play.
Oh yeah, I think it has
because he's a better quarterback.
Yeah, and for some reason, Dom, I don't know if you've noticed too, but for some reason, yeah, and I think the one-timer to Pasternak, that pass is made easier, or he receives it better from a left-handed shot, not from a right-handed shot. Mm-hmm. So I think that also has something to do with it.
Well, and the other problem is that teams know if Pasternak doesn't move, if he's just waiting for that one-timer, teams know to get in that lane. If he's moving before he accepts the pass, that's when they're doing better. But if he's literally just flat-footed, standing outside that circle, then they're getting in the lane to take the pass away, or they're getting in the lane to take the shot away. So, but when they're
sometimes, moving, go ahead, Gayle. Sorry.
No. I was just gonna say when they're all moving, like when Lindholm's moving, when Marchand's moving, when they're all moving and no one's stationary, even if Pasternak ends up being stationary, that's when he's getting in the clean shot because they're chasing the puck. But if they're just passing the puck in a triangle without moving around, that's when it's too easy to defend.
What? Absolutely, 100%. Now, I will say this: between the left-handed shot on the point and the right-handed shot, Hockey is a game of split seconds. And a left-handed shot at the point feeding Pasternak the puck has less distance to travel than a right-handed shot. It's a split second, and sometimes that's all it takes.
Yeah, I'd be
The other
curious.
problem is when Lindholm stays behind the net instead of coming above the goal line. When he's behind the net, he's
Yeah.
not getting the angle that is better. He's not a threat when he's behind the net. If he comes above the goal line, he's more of a threat. So teams are collapsing on him as well, as opposed to just collapsing on Marchand and Pasternak. So when he's playing better, which he has, unfortunately, he's not being rewarded for it as much. But since they dropped him down to the third line and then he's gone back up, he's been playing better. He's been seeing the ice better. But
Yeah.
he's another one that I think that this time next year, that Bruins fans are going to be like, okay, now I understand why Sweeney signed him. Do I like the contract? I don't like any long contracts, so that's besides the point. But I think that he has a lot more skill that he just hasn't been able to show yet. But the whole team's been that way. Frederick has underperformed. Coyle's underperformed. Geeky was underperforming, and now he's playing better. I mean, it's like this with this team. Even Pasternak was slow to get going, and now he should be in the Hart conversation.
Yeah, I've been saying this about Lindholm and Zadorov, for that matter, for a while now. Both guys have played on 3 different teams, 4 different coaches, and 4 systems in a calendar year. It's a lot of adjusting.
And that doesn't include the physical moving of themselves and their family and all of their stuff. And
yeah,
it's all part of it, though.
Just
right.
It is, but you can't. I'm not taking anything away from that, Chris, at all. But just the hockey, playing hockey.
Right. No, absolutely. If you look at it as just the hockey part, that's enough on its own. You factor in just the life part, that would be enough for most people on its own. They're trying to go through both of them simultaneously. And not to mention all the constant road trips.
Name one player that the Bruins got in either a trade or a free agent signing that came in 100% that the team or the fans, not the team, that the fans expected, that that the player met their expectations from game 1. Outside of like Chara in 2006, outside of Savard, you know what I mean? Like in recent years, when they brought in Bertuzzi at the trade deadline, it took him a while to get his groove in Boston. You know, you look at Geeky last year, it took him a while to get where people were like, oh, okay, you know, this kid, you know what I mean? It's just like when players go from one, especially playing in the Western Conference to the Eastern Conference, it takes a while for the systems, because the Western Conference, the teams out there play differently than the Bruins do. The Bruins, I was talking to actually a few people about this, because even if you look at the Fleet, the Boston Fleet, the women's hockey team, the Bruins and the Fleet are built from the back end out. They've always been built from the back end out. You're built from your goaltenders to your defense and then your forwards, right? We can all agree with that. 100% can agree with that. So
yeah.
So the problem is that when you rely on your goaltender and your defense for as much as they do, and you don't have the offense to match, you run into this problem.
Yeah.
But Sweeney has said from day one that Zadorov, and I've said it numerous times in different articles and on Twitter and everywhere else, Zadorov is built for the playoffs. He's not built for the regular season. And I don't care how many penalties he has. The whole team has been horrible with penalties, especially in the offensive zone. So until they can And you're playing that way because you're chasing the play. You're not playing that way
Exactly.
because he wants to commit penalties.
Yeah.
I mean, I just, yeah.
No,
Sorry. I went on a
it's
rant.
100% true. And really, to answer your question about who came in and met or was with the fans along with their expectations, there's only one name that comes to mind, and that's because expectations were low. He came in injured, and we knew what kind of player he was, and that's Pat Maroon.
And he didn't live up to it in the, you know what I mean? He wasn't the
He
same
wasn't,
player.
and he's still not. But the lowered
yes.
expectations, the
Yeah.
fact that he came in hurt, everyone's like, whatever he can give us is gravy. Yay. And,
Right.
okay, great.
Yeah.
We got a little gravy.
I would say maybe Taylor Hall and Dmitry Orlov. Probably the two
I
closest.
still think they took a little bit of time, but yeah, they would probably be the next two.
I think Orlov probably was the closest. I think Taylor Hall took a little bit. I think he had to find the right chemistry with his line mates. But skill-wise, yes, his skill was there, but he wasn't putting up the numbers
right
that you expected him to put up until he found, or until, you know, the coaching staff found the right mix on the lines.
Yeah, and
I mean, you gotta.
Yeah, I was just, go ahead, unless you want to finish. People have to also realize that Taylor Hall on a third line is an abnormality. It's not a regularity.
Correct.
Two players that are whipping boys for the Bruins right now. I'm going to touch on one in particular and give you my take on it, but I'm real curious to what your take is. Well, both of you actually, and that is Brandon Carlo. Not having a good year, obviously, but you can say that about 99% of the team. One of the issues, or one of the things fans turn to, is his giveaways. And anybody who's coached hockey at a high enough level knows that coaches don't pay much attention to giveaways. Hold on to that thought, because I will get to it. What coaches care more about is than giveaways is turnovers. And there is a difference. I find that Brandon Carlo's giveaways have gone up because of a lack of team structure. The Bruins are known for having layers, being in position, staying close to the puck carrier, make those quick passes, get it out of the zone, and that's lacking. And when you're not giving the puck carrier an option, a legitimate, easy option for a breakout, it creates giveaways. Again, different than a turnover. That's why coaches pay attention to turnovers, not giveaways, because giveaways aren't all, like plus minus is not always reflective of the player and is sometimes reflective of team structure.
Mm-hmm.
I'll let you go first on that one.
I'm smiling because I'm smiling because I think one of Carlo's issues this year is not having Hampus Lindholm.
Mm-hmm.
The two of them play so well off each other that they have the chemistry that like Bergeron and Marchand have. They know where the other one's going to be. So Carlo knew that if Hampus Lindholm was going to rush into the play or whatnot, he knew where to stay. He doesn't have that chemistry with any other defenseman. I understand that he has turnovers and giveaways and different stuff like that. But when you're missing, and he's played okay with Lori, but Lori is still learning, and he's going to make a lot of mistakes. And so when you have And that's the other thing. Like, Peak plays very well with Zadorov. Zadorov plays very well with Peak. For some reason, Zadorov does not play well with McAvoy. Wotherspoon, you can kind of plug him in anywhere. But when you take him out of the lineup and put him back in, he starts to lose his confidence. The more games he plays, the more confidence he has.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I know people are down on McAvoy. People are down on Carlo. Everyone's down on this team because no one's performing. Like, they had career years last year and the year before. Okay. The Bruins exceeded expectations the last 2 seasons. Do fans not realize the wear and tear of a full hockey season and a postseason? It's not like they've played 82 games and they're done. The postseason, we all know, is 100% different. And the injuries, and I know every team has injuries, but look at the injuries. Look at the injuries are not a bottom. Yes, I know Mac Kastelik has been injured, but you're talking about your number 1 defenseman, your number 2 defenseman, who you can interchange those. Sometimes Lindholm plays better than McAvoy, but they're your top 2 defensemen. You've missed a lot of games with those.
And a couple where you missed those 2 plus your number 3 defenseman.
Right. So I just don't know what the expectations are, other than the fact of what you said, that yes, things are not going right for this team. But the problem is that you're missing manpower, and you have a lot of new players and another new coach who, yeah, the system's the same, but the lines are still being jumbled in a blender.
Not nearly as much, thankfully.
No, not nearly as much, but it's also, it's hard to determine. Like, Brazeau was playing well when he was playing with Marchand and Coyle, but then he moved Coyle down, and then he moved Geeky. You know what I mean? It's like, so you have that going on. Now Geeky's playing with Pasternak, and of course, anyone playing with Pasternak, because teams are going to collapse on Pasternak, which opens up the ice for his, for his opposite wing. So, but in the same sense, if Pasternak gets injured, this team is Chicago. This team is San Jose.
Yeah.
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 So, and you want to talk about turnovers and giveaways. If I hear one more person talk about Pasternak's giveaways, oh my God. When the puck is on his stick as often as it is,
You're
of
bound
course
to
he's
have.
going to turn the puck over.
Yeah. I always encourage those folks to take a
Well-
look at the league leaders in turnovers and tell me whether those teams should trade those players or not.
And I just talked to
It's irrelevant, because I have to touch on this comment from Matrix. This is what the whole conversation is about, Matrix. A turnover is different than a giveaway. The NHL does not track turnovers, but there is a real strong push from general managers and coaches for the NHL to do away with giveaways and track turnovers instead. Individual teams track turnovers. That is more important than the giveaway. Here's an example of a giveaway. Brandon Carlo has the puck in the near boards, and the Bruin system is to wrap it around to the winger on the other side. Let's say Brad Marchand. If Brad Marchand is not there and Vegas gets the puck, that's a giveaway. It's not a turnover, it's a giveaway. Whose fault is that? Brandon Carlos for making the play that he is supposed to make, or Brad Marchand for not being in position? That's why coaches absolutely hate the giveaway stat.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a reflection on the player, it's a reflection on the system.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Can we clip, Chris? Can you clip that and play that on repeat on Twitter?
I will get a clip of that for sure.
Put that on repeat. Maybe people will stop
Oh
complaining.
man, it's trade Pastrnak because he gives away the puck or he turns it over too much. It just okay, but you still want him on your team. Like,
But like I said, coaches don't give a shit about giveaways. Pasternak could have
Yeah.
100 giveaways in a game. They don't give a shit as long as he's producing.
My issue with Pasternak, and it's not him. Again, it goes to the system. I do not understand why on a power play they give him the puck in the neutral zone to try and bring it into the offensive zone.
No,
He's
Zaka
not
should
that,
have it.
huh?
Zaka
What?
should have it.
Right.
Zone entry.
Pasternak should not have it. And 9
Right.
times out of 10, he has the puck. And then they
Mhm.
can't get into the offensive zone because he gets stripped.
yeah,
Where
You know
Zaka
what I
is
mean?
very good at it.
It should be Zaka, it should be Lindholm, or it should be your defenseman. It should never be Pasternak. Pasternak should accept the pass once they're in the offensive zone, but not bringing the puck into the offensive zone. And I will die on that hill.
Exactly. I'm with you 1,000%.
yeah. Dom, we've had that conversation before, and you've said the exact same thing. Let's see here. We do have a great question. Oh, Chris Davis jumping in of Drop the Mitts. He wants to know what our hopes and expectations are for the trade deadline, which I know there's a few other questions in there that are circling around, like what's next for the team, kind of what direction do they go. So I'm seeing them all. Just this one stands out to me right now. So we'll kind of go that direction here. What do you guys want to see this team do going forward to try to fix these problems?
For me, it's simple. I'm not adding to this team this year unless it's for beyond this season. I'm not. It's not worth investing in. It's not worth giving assets up on.
I said yesterday on Twitter that to me it's clear that they need to build for the future, not for this season. So I 100% will not give up. I don't think that they should give up assets for a rental. If they give up assets to make this team better for the next 3 years, that's different.
Yep.
So if they're going to give up prospects, but and there's only one prospect who's not even, he's kind of a prospect and not really. Patra to me is not, he's still a prospect, but he's not because he still is in that you don't know what they're going to do with him. I do not want to see him get traded or be in a package. I want to see him in the NHL full time. I don't, and I understand why they sent him down today. That's not what I'm saying because he should be playing while they're on this break. So him playing in Providence makes sense. But if they have to trade Lysell, if they have to, I mean, that's what I mean by I don't want to see them give up on Kirilov either. I would like to see him get more time up front. I mean, up top. But for me, you need to build for the future. This is not about getting rentals to try and make the playoffs this year. If they make the playoffs, great. If they don't, I'm okay with that. If they build for the future. So people that are like they have to sell, 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 they don't necessarily have to sell, sell, sell if it's not going to build past this season. If they're only going to sell to try and be better this season, then that doesn't work for me personally.
No, the only guy I'd be jumping to move right now would be Trent Frederick if he's not willing to sign an extension before trade deadline.
I'd be okay with moving. I'd be okay with moving Coyle too. I like Coyle. I like Coyle and I like Freddie. But if they can get something to build the team in the future, again, not a rental, to build the team for the future, then I'm okay with that. I'm okay with them parting ways even with Johnny Beecher if they can build for the future. You know what I mean? Like there's no one in the bottom 6 that I'm like, "Oh my god, you have to keep them." There's not one player in the bottom 6 that I'm like, you have to keep them. This isn't the Merlot line from 2011.
I think the closest
No,
player you get to that would be Mark Kostelic.
yeah.
Yeah.
But even then,
But even so, I mean, they just signed the extension with him, so I'm okay. But if they can get better, if they can get faster, then I'm
yeah,
all
he's
for
not an
it.
irreplaceable
You know what I mean?
player. He's
Like,
not a
right. To me, the core of this team, and I know people are like, oh, trade Swayman. Why would you trade Swayman?
Yeah, exactly.
He wasn't there for camp, so yeah, he's starting to play like he should be playing. If he was at camp, he probably would have been, you know what I mean? But the team in front of him isn't playing as well either. So you can't expect Swayman to do what he did last year when the team in front of him isn't doing what they did last year. Number one. So I don't like my untouchables are Pasternak, Swayman, McAvoy, and Hampus Lindholm, and Patra. That's it. Those are my untouchables. Those are the people that, unless you're going to get Connor McDavid, or you're going to get Leon Draisaitl, or you're going to get
Rantanen.
Nathan McKinnon.
Nathan McKinnon. You know what I mean? Like, unless you're going to get that elite player for the future, and not just for this year, for the absolute future, you don't touch any of those guys, because that is your core moving forward.
And those are trades that, Don, we've talked about it. Those happen in the offseason. They're not trade deadline deals. Now, someone like Charlie Coyle, you could move him at a trade deadline because he's a player that can help a team now and next year. But that's where you're looking at, okay, so it's Coyle. How much value does he really have out there that's going to help you in the immediate? Because, okay, great. A team offered you a first-round pick for him. Well, that first-round pick is a late-round pick, and they won't be in your NHL roster for 3 seasons, 2 if you're lucky.
Well, it depends, because it really depends, though, because that first round pick could turn into Pasternak.
It could. No,
Pasternak was a late
but
round
how
pick.
many years
He
was
wasn't
it
an
for him
early
to
pick.
get on the roster, on the NHL roster? He was still 2 years out, if I'm not mistaken, because he spent.
But that's okay. If you truly want to give your players in the AHL, if you truly want to give them the opportunity, then if you move on from a Coyle and you get a first round pick, even if it's late round, and you get a first round pick and maybe another forward or whatever, then you give Lysell, you give Mikro, then you become San Jose for the rest of the season, and you play your prospects and you see what you truly have in them.
And not only that, you could package your two first rounders to move up and get one of the, I would say, 4 potential number 1 centermen available in this draft.
I'm not saying there aren't ways around it. I'm just, it's from what we hear Don Sweeney say, he wants to try to walk both sides of the aisle as far as helping the team now and in the future. So, yes, a first-round pick you can bring in and you can flip it. Like, we've seen those types of things done. It just, how many of those deals are out there right now? That's the thing. Like, everybody wants to say,
But I haven't heard Don Sweeney say that. What I've heard Don Sweeney and Cam Neely and Charlie Jacobs say is they have to figure out which path they're taking.
right, which means they're not doing it today.
Yeah.
Which means they're waiting until the 7th, probably until.
No, because they said they were going to see where they were at this break.
Mm-hmm.
They were going to see where they were at and where the other teams were at. Now, had they won all these last 4 games, then I would see them teetering more on buying. But giving up 2 third period leads and going into the break on a 2-game losing skid, and seeing the other teams in the division winning going into the break, I think that they're looking at it a little bit differently.
Yeah.
So because they've only won 3+ games, twice this year?
Yeah.
They've not been able to string together a handful of wins like they have in the past.
Yeah, I mean, I would look at all the guys that aren't tied down for next season. I would be looking at to see engaging what their value is, with the exception of Geeky, just because it does say something about his ability. I know you mentioned that, yes, anyone on a line with Pasternak, people focus on Pasternak, and so they'll be open. But Geeky's making those shots. We've seen other players not take advantage of that opportunity. You know that he fits. You have restricted free agency right around the corner for him. Yes, he's got arbitration, but that's not going to be a contract that costs you an arm and a leg going forward. So that's someone that you try to keep around for a little bit. But I mean, what's going on with Justin Brazeau? Why and what's going on? I wanted to ask you about this too. What is going on with the Oliver Wahlstrom experiment? Why is he still here? Like, don't get me wrong. I thought when he went back in the lineup, he's looked better with Frederick and Poitras, but still not great. So what the hell are we doing here?
I wish I knew with the Oliver Wahlstrom. I wish I knew. I honestly do. I wish I knew. Sweeney has, in a way, if you look at it, in the past, he's found those players that have bad seasons or whatever and finds a way that they fit the Bruins mold. Morgan Geeky is an example of that.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't that successful in Seattle. He had a career year last year. He's on pace to eclipse his career year with 25 games left in the season. So
After a
he is
bad
on
start.
pace. After a bad start, too, right? 100%. So I don't know if Wahlstrom, like, it's weird because I don't know if they're seeing something in him that they just don't see in Brazeau. You know what I mean? Like, did Brazeau, because last year it was a very, very, very small what's the word? Sample size. Very small sample size on Brazeau. Is he playing the way he played last year?
No.
No. So, but I still don't know why he's so Wahlstrom's faster than Brazeau, but Brazeau's bigger in terms of physicality, and he could be, if he played in front of the net more, which is where he was performing last year, then but I just, neither one of them set the Bruins on fire. So even if it doesn't matter. Either one of them is not going to put this team above so I don't know why those two are getting longer looks over Mikhailov. You know what I mean? If you're lacking offense, why is Wahlstrom and Brazeau still up here when you could have Mikhailov up here with a long look? He got what, 2 games?
Something like that. Dom, do you have any theories on that?
What, Wahlstrom?
Wahlstrom and Brazeau over Mikhailov. Or anyone else in Providence, for that matter.
I know Cam and Don and Charlie, they've all said you have to outscore your mistakes or outplay your mistakes or whatever. But and then you have the people on Twitter that take that quote and apply it to every single Bruin. Right. But the thing is that Lohrei has a ton of mistakes. Has he outplayed his mistakes? You know what I mean? Marchand's made a ton of mistakes this year. Everyone on this team has made a ton of mistakes. It's not, this team is not good. They play well in stretches where people are like, oh, maybe they are a playoff team. And then they show you why they're out of a playoff spot. So who on this team is outplaying their mistakes?
Pasta.
Maybe Pasta. That's it.
Right.
I mean,
Even Zaka with the penalty yesterday in the offensive zone. You know what I mean? It's like when they do stuff like that, you're like, well, he's not outplaying his mistakes because his offensive output is not what it's been in the past.
Right.
He's been non-existent in
A lot.
games. Literally, if you lift Pasternak out over the past month and a half, this team has no offense.
Yeah, they're probably worse than San Jose or Chicago because at least they still have a Celebrini or Bedard.
Right. But if you take Pasternak, if Pasternak ever got injured, knock on wood, Geeky's not performing.
Yeah. Your next
So,
closest
I
point
don't know.
producer is Brad Marchand, and he is 24 points behind Pasternak. Like, if this team makes it to the playoffs, it is on the back of David Pasternak, and I would say maybe sharing the load with Jeremy Swayman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Swayman's getting so much crap this year because of the way he started the season.
He is 4th in the league in shots faced. I want people to realize that. He has played one fewer game than Mackenzie Blackwood, who is right above him, who has 13 more shots faced than he does. And then he has 3 fewer games than the only other 2 goaltenders who are above him on that list. And they are Andrei Vasilevsky and Connor Hellebuck. He is under siege.
It doesn't matter though, because he got lit up by the Jets. So he's, no one cares about how many
Everyone's getting
shots
lit
he's
up by the
facing.
Jets. Wait till the playoffs, and then
But
no one
that's my
will.
point. But that's my point. That's my 100% point. Is that Swayman, to your point, Dom, Swayman, Carlo have been the whipping boys of the Bruins.
Yeah, and
100% been the whipping
And
boys.
Trent
of the Bruins.
Frederick. You got to throw Trent Frederick in that.
I mean, at least Frederick deserves it a little bit. A little bit. Of the 3.
Well, yeah, but
Of the 3,
but
he
also,
deserves it the most.
Yes.
But did he overperform last year? So if you look
I
at
don't think
what
so,
he did
Gail,
last year
because
versus the year before, did he outperform like the whole team did last year?
but Frederick's done it for 2 seasons.
Yeah.
I think this is him underachieving this year, and it couldn't have happened at a worse time for him, being in a contract year.
And this year, he has been like the David Krejci of not having line mates.
I am looking at one. I pulled him up on here just to take a look. So Dom, you mentioned he's been doing it for 2 years. So 2 years ago, 22-23 was the first year when he had 31 points, and then last year he jumped up to 40. But last year he played on average 2.5 more minutes, or roughly 2 minutes more per night. But it also looks like he spent a lot more time at center than he did on the wing. Because last year he had 132 faceoffs won to 159 lost. This year he only has 91 that he's won and 119 that he's lost. So he's spending a lot less time in the middle of the ice. Could that be a fact?
You're asking me to do math as you're talking, Chris, and give me wins and losses that quick. What are the numbers again?
Hold on, I'm going to do the math for you as I say them off. So 132 faceoffs won 2 years ago, or a year ago. All right, with 159 that he lost. So 291 draws total.
In how many games?
In all 82.
82.
Give me per game, because I don't want to do math on 52 games and try and figure out per game.
So that's an average of 3.5 per game.
Okay.
Now this year he's averaging a little more, actually. So when it's broken down per game, he's averaging 0.3 more per game.
Okay.
But
So
he's not winning them.
to answer your question, you cannot use face-offs taken as an indicator to what position the player is playing. Because when he's out there with Matthew Poitras and it's a defensive zone face-off, Trent Frederick is taking the face-off. When he's out there with Charlie Coyle and the face-off is on the left side, he's taking the face-off. We see it with Morgan Geekie and Pavel Zacha. When the face-off is in the right, Geekie's taking it. When it's on the left, Zacha's taking it. You cannot use face-offs as an indicator of what position a player is playing.
Well, I'd be interested to see what the breakdown is between where he lines up more last year and the year before with Montgomery versus now under Sacco. That's a question that I would have.
The year before, though, was when he was on the third line with Charlie Coyle, because Bergeron and Krejci were still playing 2 years ago. You know what I mean? The historic year, which was the first year that he eclipsed his numbers, when he had 31 points. He was playing on the third line with Charlie Coyle.
Yes, which is a pairing that we know has worked.
Last year, right. Last year, though, he had 18 goals and 22 assists, which is his best year ever. But Coyle was playing with Marchand. So I don't remember who he played with last year. I'm drawing a blank of who he played with last year.
Geeky a lot. Didn't he play?
Yeah. And at times it was Frederick Poitras and Geekie, which was a good third line.
Poitras missed majority of the season after he had to have shoulder surgery.
But he did spend a lot of time with them. You know, it's funny. We talk about face-offs. If you go back a year ago on this very show, we talked about face-offs and how Matthew Poitras was terrible at face-offs. And I said, look, the guy has excellent technique. I even gave examples on what you do on a face-off. He just lacks strength. And once he gets stronger, because his technique is so good, he will get better. You look, he got a little bit stronger. His face-offs have jumped up.
Yeah, he's about 4% better than he was last year.
But 4% better.
I think we saw another player do that in his career, and I believe his name was Patrice Bergeron.
Yeah.
I'm not saying Matthew Poitras is Patrice Bergeron, but when Bergeron first came into the league, he had the technique, but he didn't have the strength.
Yeah.
Right.
Real quick, there are some comments that I want to get to, if you guys don't mind. Some to fly through.
No, go ahead.
Chris mentioned that he wanted us to talk about people who are ragging on Dean Letourneau a lot. Dom, I know you and I talk about Dean Letourneau heavily on the prospect shows on Mondays, but Gayle, while we've got you here, if you want to offer any thoughts on Dean Letourneau, the project that he is, and any thoughts on the expectations for him that you have had on him.
So the thing about Letourneau is there is a huge jump from juniors to college, just like there is from college to professional, just like there's junior, you know what I mean? There's a huge jump. So Coach Brown has said that he's seeing him develop this. Yes, he is kept off the score sheet, but he's doing other things. And he's a freshman. No one expected him to be Connor Bedard or, you know what I mean? He doesn't have that elite talent. So he's going to be one of those guys that has to marinate. I love using that word now that Mujanelli uses that all the time. He has to marinate. He does. He needs to marinate. So I think that a lot of people are ragging on him for the wrong reasons. And again, I'm not sure. Dom, you are so dialed in with prospects and development. I'm assuming that you'll agree with me on this, but hockey is not a sport like football where you're going to come out and just, I mean, look at Bedard. He's
Yep.
not lighting up the NHL. He's gonna eventually, but he's not Connor McDavid. And even Connor McDavid, I mean, it's just like there's different types of development and different levels of hockey. And people just expect every single player that the Bruins draft is going to be the next elite player without realizing that sometimes kids have to develop.
Here's the argument I heard today. And I didn't bother to respond to it. But I will here on this show. And you can tell me what you think. So the comparison was made with Dean Letourneau compared to Teddy Stigo, who plays on the same BC team, is also a freshman, and is, I believe, fourth in team scoring with BC compared to Dean Letourneau's 2 assists this season. Then I saw an argument saying, you know, there's a history with prep school players going to the NCAA, and Letourneau doesn't meet what previous or past players have done. Well, let me start with past prep school players. That's American prep school players, not Canadian prep school players. Going from a Canadian prep school to the NCAA is a huge jump. It's 2 jumps. Going from American prep school to the NCAA is nowhere near the jump it is going from a Canadian prep school. Now, the comparison to Teddy Stiga, who was a second round pick, 55th overall by Nashville, has 10 goals, 13 assists in 26 games, and I believe 4th on BC in scoring. Okay? Teddy Stiga spent 2 years with the U.S. National Development Team program, the USHL, to the NCAA. That is, in terms of development, is the next step in progression. The USHL to the NCAA. Again, Dean Letourneau lost out on a year of development in the developmental league more suited to him, and that being Canadian Junior A or the USHL, and made the jump straight to the NCAA. There is no comparing.
He wasn't originally supposed to either.
Right. There is no comparing Teddy Stiga to Dean Letourneau at this point, because Stiga is following the natural progression in terms of leagues to develop in, whereas Dean Letourneau skipped a whole year.
I agree with you. I agree, and I'm glad that you didn't, give into that argument, because
No, I
again, the development is, you're 100% spot on. And Letourneau originally was not supposed to go play this year. He was not supposed to go play for BC. He was supposed to wait until next year, but he made the decision to make the jump earlier
with the Bruins' blessing.
Right. And that's the thing. He 100%, Dom, 100%. He skipped a year of his development by doing what he did. But that's not to say that he's not going to become better than what he is right now. He's just a little bit behind.
I think in the long run, it's a great benefit for him, even though the numbers aren't there and it's got fans worrying. I think in the long run, it'll better help his development. Look, if Will Smith did not jump to the NHL, we'd be talking about Dean Letourneau and his numbers in the USHL right now. It's as simple as
Right.
that.
Right.
100%.
100%. And I honestly, and like, that's why my tweet yesterday was like, Bruins Twitter, I have a lot of questions, you know what I mean? Because they want instant gratification.
Mm-hmm.
The Bruins fans, I love you, but you are not patient. 100% not patient.
Right.
You expect results yesterday.
Yeah.
Look, I will say this, Gayle. You know, we show highlights of goals and stuff on our Monday prospect show. And tomorrow, without giving too much away, we're going to do things a little different. Yeah, we're going to show some goals and stuff, but we're also going to show why these players just aren't ready yet. Because everybody on Twitter pulls highlights of goals and assists and big saves because that gets them followers. And you know, unfortunately, to a lot of people, the number of followers they have is more important than putting out real information. And I think putting highlights up is not real information. But putting up highlights of why a player is not ready causes you more grief in the long run because of fans complaining to you that you're wrong or you're stupid or you don't know what you're talking about, as opposed to highlights of goals that get you a dozen new followers every day.
Yeah.
I'm laughing at, there's a comment. I'm sorry to throw you under the bus, Taz24, but his comment is, doesn't matter if Swayman has seen the third most rubber. His salary dictates he needs.
I was
going to
bring that one up at a point. Yeah, I'm glad you shifted over to it. Oop.
Yeah, well, you know, Swayman has stolen them a couple of games over the last few weeks.
Or given them enough to win had they not collapsed in front of him.
Yeah.
I understand that training camp was 5 months ago, but he's tracking the puck so much better. He's in control of his rebounds, which was a huge thing that scared me earlier on in his career. He did not have rebound control. And he gained his rebound control over the last 2 seasons.
You know who else got better at it this year?
And missing training camp.
You know who else got better at it this year?
What?
Korpisalo.
Right. Thank you, goalie Bob. But the thing about Swayman, and I understand, you know, that people are mad that he missed training camp, and training camp was 5 months ago, but that's still a month, because goalies are different. When you miss that, yeah, he worked out at BU. That's not the same as working out with your NHL team.
No, it's not.
He worked out at BU. He missed a good chunk of his off season because of his agent, and I still blame his agent.
And if you want to know what the difference can be of the team in front of you, the best example, go look right now, because the splits are so close. Mackenzie Blackwood. He faced 583 shots in 19 games with San Jose. He has now faced 580 shots in 22 games with Colorado. His save percentage with Colorado is .922, which is over. It's about 0.18 above where it was in San Jose, and his goals against average is 0.87 lower. So it's not even about it's not even the shots that he's facing. You can have your goaltender face 30 shots a game if he has a clear vision of the shot and he can dish them off into the corner. If he can make the easy save and track the puck, as you're talking about, he will make the save. When you have a shit show in front of him, it doesn't matter if he's facing 580 shots or 583. the numbers, the puck's going to go in more with a disaster in front of them. San Jose and Colorado,
Right.
very different teams. And if that split doesn't tell you what's going on in front of Swayman right now between a good game and a bad game, I got nothing for you.
Well, it's the same thing with Allmark. He went from a Buffalo team that was crap in front of him to a Bruins team that was stellar in front of him to a mediocre team in Ottawa. What does that tell you?
Goaltenders are only as good as what they can see.
Right.
Dom, anything to add to that? Oh, I think your mic got turned down a little bit.
No, absolutely agree. I was just looking at this last question because I think it deserves an answer.
This one here?
Sacco?
I had it up. You took it down.
I might have accidentally. Was it this one here
Joe
from 10
Sacco.
shots going forward in the future?
No, the last. No. The one about Sacco. It's up there right now.
Yeah.
Oh.
Do the Bruins let Sacco go in the offseason?
You start, because I got very strong opinions about it.
I have a very strong opinion in this. There's a reason why he's been an associate coach or an assistant coach for the Bruins for the past decade and has never been promoted to head coach. I personally don't think he's the right coach as a head coach. Not with this roster, not with this team. They kept the system that Montgomery had in place. He didn't tweak it at all. If it didn't work under Montgomery, it's not going to work under Sacco, in my opinion. So I don't know who they can get, though, but they have to do something because the voice behind the bench matters with this team.
Agreed, 100%. I could see them bringing him back as an assistant if he wanted to. And at this point, after having the interim tag, why would he want to? I think a change needs to be made there. Unfortunately, this would be what, Don Sweeney's fifth coach?
Well,
No.
he fired.
He had Claude.
He fired Claude, right.
Cassidy, Montgomery,
Butch,
Sacco.
Montgomery.
So it would be his fifth coach.
Yeah, but I'm not. But Sacco's really an interim. Like they didn't go out and find him. They just elevated someone that was already within the system. So I don't really. I mean, this one's a little bit. This is more of a Band-Aid than it was.
Kind of half.
Mike Sullivan will never come back to Boston. Because if Mike Sullivan comes back, then McAvoy's gone. So because they're not going to do that. And if people want McAvoy gone, then that's a whole different topic. But they never should have let Mike Sullivan go after the lockout that year.
No, they shouldn't have.
And brought in Dave Lewis. Dave Lewis was historically bad coach for the Bruins.
The worst. And I go back before Bobby.
I have a lot of I have a lot of feelings about Dave Lewis. I have a lot of feelings about what happened to Mike Sullivan that year. So anyways, I have a lot of feelings about what Mike O'Connell did to that team, but that's besides the point.
That's a different program.
It's 100% different program. I don't hate Joe Sacco. I just don't think he's the right coach for this team. Do I think they do? Oh, no Quinville.
No Quinville.
Sorry, no Quinville. No Quinville. Not after what happened in Chicago.
Sorry. Out on Quinville.
You know who would have been a perfect coach for this team?
Bruce Cassidy.
Paul Maurice. Well, yeah, Bruce Cassidy, but I mean, they screwed that up. But a Paul Maurice would be a great coach for this team. But I don't see. They have to go outside their comfort zone. They have to go 100% outside of the Bruins' normal comfort zone. They have to get away from the old boys club. They have to get away from, like Dave Quinn's another one that you throw out. Dave Quinn, Dave Quinn is another one that he has Boston ties.
Mm-hmm.
Does that mean he's a good coach for the Bruins? Probably not. So who is that guy? Who is the guy that's going to be the right coach for the Bruins? They had him in Cassidy.
Yeah.
And that's probably why they
had him in
and
Cassidy.
that's probably why they looked at a guy like Sacco, and when he knows the system, he's been around, he's similar. Let's see if he's similar enough. And right now he's proving not to be. I know everyone wants to know who. Give us some names. Give us some names. I mean, there are. I pulled up the head coaches around the league. I'm curious on some of these guys because they are guys that I could see becoming available, reasonably becoming available. Not, John Cooper. Like obviously he would go anywhere in a heartbeat. But,
hold on. I just got a comment to this before.
Go ahead.
It disappears. On
the Pandolfo one.
What's his name? At BU coming back. He is not leaving BU. 100% guaranteed. Jay Pandolfo is not leaving Boston University, even for an NHL job. Anyway,
it's
go
not
on,
worth it.
Chris.
If you can get a job at a college university coaching hockey, you got a job for life. Like, it's just not worth it. Head coaches in the NHL get cycled through.
Go
before I dive into that, though, I want to bring up Tyler's question. Didn't they go outside their comfort zone with Jim Montgomery?
Yes.
They did, but with the roster that they had when Montgomery was here his first season, I could have coached the Bruins and they would have done what they've done in the historic
both seasons. Yeah, both seasons that he was here. But just let me know if these are,
I mean?
Let me know if these are some guys that you would bring in for this team if they're available in the offseason. I don't think any of them would become available sooner than that. Out of Vancouver, Rick Tocchet.
Yes, 100%.
I would take Rick Tocchet.
Out of Seattle, Dan Bielsma.
No.
No.
Let's see. Out of Nashville, Andrew Burnett.
No.
No.
Out of LA, Jim Hiller.
No.
No.
Let's see. They just switched. And the last one that I had out of Calgary, Ryan Huxa.
No. Not with this roster. There would have to be a roster overhaul.
Yeah, I'm on the fence on that one, but as Gayle said, with this roster, no. The problem is, and I'm sure you guys will agree with me, that whatever the decision they make with coaching has to be done before July 1st. They need to know who is going to coach his team and in what way
before they go into free agency.
Before they go into free agency and get the players that coach needs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, 100%.
There's no half doing it. And to Michael Gillis, I'm going to say this about Joe Quenneville. After the fiasco they went through with the Mitchell Miller signing, Cam Neely losing it, having to hire an independent
investigative organization.
You want to call her an investigative organization to find out what went wrong? They are not. As long as the Jacobs and Neely as long as the Jacobs own the team and Neely is the president, are going to take a chance on bringing in Joel Quenneville.
Nope.
Honestly, a team that I could see making that jump would be a team like a Vancouver, someone that's desperately trying to get to that next level and constantly is chasing something that's always eluding them. But that's why you got to wait till
he never Bettman should never have given him the ability to come back, in my opinion.
No.
Yeah.
He should have been it shouldn't have been lifted. It should have been, you're done, go away.
Yeah, and it's just but the point being is
Not in today's day
yeah,
and age.
that's a one strike kind of thing. But to Dom's point, you have to know in the offseason what you're going to go in the direction for, but you also have to wait till the offseason to bring someone in because you don't know who's going to be available. Dom, we've had that conversation before. All the guys.
Yeah, but you're going to know once the season is over for a team.
Exactly. But that's what I mean. Is you have to
Vancouver
wait.
If Vancouver doesn't make the playoffs, they're not waiting till the Stanley Cup is over to let Rick Chaka go if that's what they're going to do. They're going to let him go the day after the season ends.
Oh, yeah. No, 100%. But, again, that's not happening for another 3 months, 4 months, and, so on and so forth. So, with that, though, I am just noticing the time. The time's flying. So, do you guys see a full roster and coaching staff overhaul going into next year if they miss the playoffs?
At this point, I'm not sure it's an if they miss the playoffs. It's a when they miss the playoffs. I mean, I'm just being honest. I just don't see them making the playoffs this year. I don't see them. I know that they have belief in themselves, and that's great. They need to keep that confidence, but I don't, because even if they do make the playoffs, they're not, as much as I want to believe they're going to beat Toronto in a 7-game series, they're not beating Toronto. They don't have the offense to match the speed of Toronto in a 7-game series. They almost lost it last year. You know what I mean? And it's a different team than 2013. Yeah, but
that pass,
it's not the same.
That pass made by Hampus Lindholm, the one that sucks and everybody wants out of here.
Do I think that Toronto's gonna win the cup? Absolutely not. I don't. But I don't see the Bruins beating Tampa in a 7-game series. I don't see them beating Toronto in a 7-game series, and they're never going to beat Florida in a 7-game series. Not this year.
Yeah, the only team I would give them a shot at is Toronto, because Toronto would just get in their own head.
Yeah, but again, the same could have been said for the Bruins all those years against Montreal.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, the dam breaks at some point.
How many years in a row did it has the Toronto's going to eventually slay their dragon.
Yeah.
The Bruins slayed theirs. The Toronto's going to eventually slay their dragon. As much as we don't believe it's going to happen, it's going to happen. As much as people don't like Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner and William Nylander, they are good hockey players. And as much as I hate Craig Berube, I would love him as the coach of the Bruins.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not letting him go anytime soon, though.
Right. But now you look at him versus, what's his name? I can't even think of his name. Who the hell was the coach last year?
Sheldon Keefe.
Thank you. Look at the comparison of the coaches. You can't tell me that Toronto is not playing better under Berube than they were under Sheldon Keefe.
Yeah, the style is just different.
And Berube knows how to win. We all lived through 2019.
Yeah.
So when you have that type of a coach and that much talent, does Toronto, if the Bruins face Toronto, would they slay the dragon finally? I'm not sure it doesn't happen.
I mean, you'd have to get to Toronto, and right now they'd be your second round matchup at the rate you're going too, because you'd face off against Florida in the first round, if not Washington, and you ain't getting by either one of them.
And Big Bad Bruin Joe is 100% right. Nylander especially was, he was with his migraines. He missed half that series.
Oh, yeah.
So, and again, I put the team on Pasternak's back with that, overtime goal.
Yeah, it was a hell of a pass, though. I give all the credit to the pass.
It was.
So
But the other thing is too is the game that they badly lost was the game that he pulled Swayman and started Allmark too.
yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
So
Well, it is a little after 8. And I want to thank everyone who's tuning in, whether you're watching the Super Bowl with us or not. We haven't talked about it once.
I keep looking.
I was
Philadelphia's
just saying,
winning.
I just checked the score for the first time. We haven't discussed it or brought it up at all on here. So I want to thank, we have over 500 people watching right now, and that is awesome, especially because it's Super Bowl Sunday. So I want to take a second to thank
you.
everyone. And I know it's all because Gayle was here and Dom is here, but you know, it's awesome. I love the
Half
comments.
the people don't even know who I am.
No, only one person. Only one person. That's all right. We tell everybody who you are anyway. But Gayle, I can't thank you enough for coming on again. We're gonna have to find a way to make this a regular thing because the insight that you bring, being in the locker room, is awesome. You do a fantastic job with all your work over at NESN. Yes, Davis, we love Gayle. We love her work. She is why we have so many people watching right now over the Super Bowl. So
I will be at Four Nations in Boston.
Covering that in person. Awesome.
Yeah.
I know actually real
Good.
quick, Chris did have a quick question on it, and I didn't want to ignore it. He said, do you feel that Charlie McAvoy is truly deserving of the A with his father-in-law, Dave Quinn, on the coaching staff because there are so many good leaders on that squad? Are we getting a little bit of favoritism with him getting that A? Thoughts?
I don't know. I mean, he's got the A in Boston, so it's not that far-fetched. But I think Dave Quinn more than Mike because Charlie played for him, and Mike doesn't. Yes, he kind of knows his game, but he doesn't. This is an opportunity that will probably never be replicated, of Mike coaching Charlie. It could be part of it, but I think it's more on Dave Quinn than it is Mike Sullivan. I think that Dave Quinn knows the voice Charlie has in a locker room.
Dom, any thoughts?
Makes sense. No, makes sense. I'm not privy to Team USA, so I'll defer to Gayle on that one.
I mean, I guess the bigger question is and Dom, this probably goes for Canada as well. Do the letters really matter who got which one? Like in Canada,
Not on these teams.
Crosby, McDavid, like McKinnon, like they all wear a C on their current teams anyway. So it's not,
Right.
McAvoy wears an A.
No, but then there's Bruins fans that say, why isn't Marchand a C? But no offense, but if you have McDavid and Crosby and McKinnon, who's the better leader? I love Marchand, but who's the better leader?
I can only speak for Canada, but I think the Crosby McDavid situation, it's much like Gretzky Lemieux. It's the handing of the torch.
Yeah.
That's what this tournament is. And I think it would have been a travesty not to give Crosby the C and McDavid the A. It would have been a travesty to not give
McDavid the C.
To give McDavid the C over Crosby.
Yeah.
At this point, I can't speak for what the thought process is in any team's dressing room, but for Team Canada, that's my feeling on it.
Yeah, I think if you look at the four teams and the echelon of players that are on the four teams, and I know a lot of people like who cares about this tournament, but you have to remember once these players go pro, up until, I mean, they couldn't play now for their team. They lost that ability to play for their country. You know what I mean? In
Hmm.
certain, and so I know a lot of people don't care about this tournament, but the players care about this tournament
Yep.
because it's the best of the best playing against each
Yeah.
other. You know what I mean?
And
Because,
with each other.
and with each other. You know, I mean, think about it. You're going to see Brad Marchand play with Sam Bennett.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You put the two of them on the same line together. I understand Bruins fans hate Sam Bennett. I don't like Sam Bennett. But you put the two of them, those two agitator, feisty players on the same line, something's going to happen. You know
Especially
what I
given
mean?
their talent
You
that
put
they can both score.
right. And then you have McDavid, Crosby. I mean, you look at the Olympics when it was Bergeron, Marchand, and Crosby.
Hmm.
We would never in our lifetime see that line in the NHL. You have the ability to see all these players, and it's not an all-star game, so they're going to actually play in this tournament.
Yeah.
I never ever thought I would get the opportunity to see Crosby and McDavid play together.
Right.
And
Right.
I hope I hope that Crosby is at 100% and can play. And I would like to see, I would like to just once for one shift see Sidney Crosby, Nathan McKinnon, and Connor McDavid on the line.
Yeah.
Just once.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
You know, and I think if they do this every other year or every couple of years, you know, offset the Olympics, because that's the thing. The players want to play in the Olympics.
Yep.
They don't. And Brad Marchand even said it, like, this is so different than the All-Star game. This is so much bigger than the All-Star game. So why wouldn't you just see these players play the way they're going to play over this short tournament? And it's not a big tournament. And I know people are like, oh, but what about injuries? The players, obviously, if they didn't want to do this, they would have said no.
yeah, there's a reason some
Yep.
guys are
But they
sitting out.
want right. Quinn
Yep.
Hughes just stepped aside. You know, he said that, you know, he's not going to do it. Crosby is making the decision. You know, he missed the last two games for Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh gave him the right to make that decision. And Mike Sullivan said, I will give you you've earned the right to make that decision for yourself, whether or not you want to play for Team Canada or if you want to, you know, not play and wait and come back to Pittsburgh or whatever. So these players, the pride, I mean, think about it. If you had the opportunity to represent your country doing your job, wouldn't you do it?
Yeah. I mean, most
Absolutely.
people would.
I
Yeah.
just- like I understand
I mean,
that there are fans that
David Pastrnak was mad that they weren't
Yeah.
included.
A lot of players were pissed. They
The
weren't
Russians
pissed.
are not included. I mean, there are a lot of players that are like, what about my country? What about my country? And it's because the NHL didn't have enough time to plan. 2 weeks wasn't long enough time because they didn't want to pack in too many games, you know, because they don't want to risk injury, but 100% they want to represent their countries. And this tournament it's not going to be the All-Star game. It's going to be phenomenal. And if it's successful, when they do it next time, they're going to probably have 6 countries, maybe 8 countries, and then it's going to be even better.
I think at that time it won't be. It'll be back to the World Cup of Hockey, and they'll play it in September.
Yeah.
Could be something like that. Yeah. But
Yeah.
it's, I'd be very curious to see also the effect that because of this break, we have had, you know, Dom bomb size trades occur the last couple weeks on the weekend at times where people were ready to just put away their thoughts on hockey for a little while, enjoy a couple games, enjoy their weekend, and then all of a sudden, boom, Rantanen's traded. You know, then you
And
had
he's not playing that well.
no, he's not. But Nietzsche's is playing well.
Yes.
So that begs the question about how much of it was Nathan McKinnon.
Right.
So, and then I forget what the other one was the following week, but then you also had Dallas making their move. You're really seeing that mini trade deadline, and that gets eyes on the sport, which means the revenues are going to be going up a bit, which the NHL likes that. So you talk about this being a success. It's not just the event that's a success. It's what the ripple effect is now that you're getting this player movement and you still have a month before the trade deadline. And now you have 32 general managers in the same facility for 2 weeks. Oh, we're in for a great deadline. That's what I'm looking forward to. So anyways, Gayle, we took you way longer than we said we would. There is a football game on right now that you and a million others are trying to view. Dom, I know you have some stuff to take care of as well.
Sorry, Philly's up 24-0.
Is it still a shutout? Holy shit.
What is it?
24-0 Philly.
Is it really? Because there's a guy at work. I absolutely hate football, and he's a big Chiefs fan. And all I heard about this week, because he took Friday off to get ready for the Super, took tomorrow off to recover, and all I heard about was how great Kansas was. And every day I walk past him, I point and go, look. He go, what? I go, it's an eagle. It's an eagle. They're coming for your Chiefs. Oh, I love it. I love it.
Wow.
And
I don't know if I'd be happy with the shutout or pissed because none of my anytime goal scorer bets for the Chiefs hit. But it's a sacrifice I think I'll make.
Listen, if Kansas City does not win, I'm happy. That's it.
So, but I can't thank you enough. Dom, thank you for the extra time. Everyone who's tuning in, thank you so much. Go enjoy the rest of the game if you are a football fan. If you're not, well, you can replay this. It's on YouTube right away, and you can add more comments in there. With that, do you guys have any final thoughts before we head out?
I just want to say thank you. Thank you for putting up with me. Thank you for inviting me. And thank you to all the watchers and commenters and everything else. And let's hope the Bruins can turn it around. If not this season, definitely next season. So,
Dom,
I just want to say thanks to Gayle for coming on. It was great. You know, we could probably go on for a couple more hours.
I can. My husband hates that about me.
Well, tell him we love you for it. Our new slogan is, "This is the place to be." We'll be back here tomorrow night for the Prospect Show at the same time.
Absolutely. Again, thanks to our friends over at Ice Shaker for helping us bring you the show. Check them out, iceshaker.com. Yes, the one and only Ice Shaker from the Gronkowski brothers. I'm not going to dive too much into that. We've kept everybody for almost 2 hours at this point. So thank you all. And with that, I will say, go Bees.